Yeah, thank you. It becomes very busy. Actually, we get busy 2 months prior the week of the cases of nursing council, where members received the information from council that they need to attend the cases. That's when then we start the process of contacting with the members and preparing them on how we're gonna go on these cases. So it becomes really busy from us when we have now to look at in every case on what is the case about. This year we're dealing with a lot of cases, like we're dealing a case of medication misuse and mishandling of medication, especially Schedule 5 and 6, which is most of the time a pethidine. And we're dealing with most of the time as well maternity cases and psychiatric cases and the general nursing care cases. So it becomes very busy because we have to prepare the case to its merit. Yeah, we had a variety of cases from general nursing care, like nurses not maintaining the handover of a patient when the shift ends, to a case of medication, as I said prior, the misuse, abuse, and mishandling of scheduled drugs, which is very important. And also had the maternity cases where you find that a nurse was a midwife and there's a lot of mishap happened when the nurse was handling a woman who was in labor. And we also have psychiatric cases where there were cases of assault of psychiatric patients. So it was a number of a lot of different cases.
The whole environment is very much intimidating for the nurses who are charged. Actually, even nurses who are not charged, they actually in a way cautioned when they are exposed to that process of the Professional Conduct Committee of the South African Nursing Council. The environment is quite cold because you remember when we represent them in those cases, we are not just saving them only for that day. It's their livelihood, their work, their profession. Without those certificates, without their qualifications, they cannot go anywhere. So it is something that is very much intimidating for any nurse to be subjected to the process of the PCC of the South African Nursing Council. Well, as a team, we have a game plan. Our first game plan is that we need to prepare for all those cases thoroughly, so that anyone who's representing a nurse must be confident enough to say, I'm going to come out with that nurse alive out of that process. But secondly, and also importantly for us, is that the game plan is that we are able to represent our nurses, being nurses ourselves. So that also helps us because we understand the profession very well, and we understand how some of those adverse events happens and under what circumstances they happen. So for us, that is where we start when we start preparing or representing our members, the nurses in the PCC. The types of cases we're having, especially this year, what I've seen that nurses take out as their take home is that they would have learned from the mistakes of their colleagues, like the issue of poor recording or not recording at all. It assists them to know how important it is and to make sure in future. And the good thing about this whole process, actually from the time I've started to represent nurses in South African Nursing Council, I've never seen a nurse who's been exposed or has been an audience during the proceedings coming back now to answer for their own acts and omissions. So for me, I think they learn a lot out of this process and they get to be exposed, because when they are learning these things, they are only told what will happen if something goes wrong, but in this case they get to be exposed live on what is happening to their colleagues and they learn from that.
I wouldn't call it them taking for granted, because the environment that nurses are working is very dire. Remember, the issue of gross shortage is an issue that leads to these nurses gets charged by nursing council, because you find one nurse looking after 30 patients, even in maternity. Now you find nurses have to work above their scope of practice, because if they don't, this means that patient is not going to be taken care of. Then that's one then will lead for nursing council to say, but why you did work above your scope of practice. And also the issue of when they have done, because they do their work, but the issue of recording, because there's no time for recording, they don't record. Which now recording, as we know, becomes your only defense. Then if you don't record, then nursing council will catch you to say you did not record. That means you did not do whatever you were supposed to do. Remember the golden rule of nursing: if it's not recorded, it is not done. And nurses must all the time keep their scope of practice. They must maintain to work within scope of practice, because if they don't, then the nursing council will have to come and answer. And the management who's expecting you to do those works, they won't be there to rescue you. One thing good about DENOSA is that DENOSA is for nurses by nurses. And when we represent these nurses at nursing council, we represent them to a PCC who are nurses as well. Therefore, if a nurse does not have a union, we cannot sit back and watch one of ours, just going there to a lion's den, if I can call it. We have to come up and nurse by representing, because you cannot as a nurse represent yourself at nursing council, because when you are there, you are not talking, the process is not talking about bad nursing care. You have to talk about legal issues. You have to know when to address the committee. You have to know when to do a cross-examination. Therefore, if you are not represented, then we have to come up as nurses for nurse and represent that person. Okay. What normally happens when you appear to nursing council is because you have performed a professional mistake, we call it. Now, that mistake can be avoided. Number one, as I said previously, that you must maintain your scope of practice. Don't do things that were never even taught in the college just because you just want to satisfy your management, or you just want to get off the bench of the patient in front of you, because you might then make a professional mistake. Also, again, record. I cannot emphasize enough that issue of recording, because recording becomes your only defense. So whatever you do, please record. Do you know that even delay recording is allowed, as long as you do, because we know you're going to have this emergency patient comes to you and then you don't record, but you can come back and say, this is what happened, record. Nobody will then say you did not do anything. So recording is very important. It becomes your defense as a nurse.
I can't emphasize more than say people must learn to record, because what is not recorded is not done, according to the nursing council. And also the issue of advocacy. There's a golden rule in nursing that as a nurse, you do for the patient whatever that they can't do themselves. So always be aware of your surroundings and what is happening around you or around your patients. Also, make sure that you do what you are trained to do as a nurse, because sometimes you find people, they don't do exactly what they are trained to do, but people must just learn to do what they are trained to do. Don't take anything for granted when it comes to a patient, because a patient's condition can change at any given time. So you cannot assume that the patient was right, so nothing can go wrong. Something can always go wrong when it comes to a patient. But also, what we've seen in poor nursing care cases by the council was the issue of identification. Make sure whatever care you want to give to the patient, you first identify that patient, including medication, any type of care you want to give to the patient. No, as DENOSA, after everything has happened, anything that you suspect might come back to you later and haunt you, make sure you contact your DENOSA representative or your DENOSA office, because we are there for you. We are there to assist in any situation that would have happened. That you, even where you think you are guilty, but come to us. Even when you are asked to write a statement, ask for help from us, so that you don't write a statement that is going to incriminate you. We are there for you. We are nurses for the nurses by the nurses as DENOSA.